Super glad to have you all join us today. This is Enterprise Weekend, reaching you from Enterprise Television from our corporate headquarters in Lagos State, Nigeria. I am Henry Igwebike. Thank you for being part of our show today, wherever you are doing that from around the world. We officially welcome you to Enterprise Television. Let's get started with what we have. We start from the newspapers, page covers, that is. And from there, we move to the main conversation, one amongst the most important stories that we have, and we have a conversation over that. So while we get together all of this, do well to be part of our show. Have a say in what we say. You can reach us when you visit us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms today at Enterprise TV7. So glad to have joining me virtually Emeka Madnago, journalist, public affairs analyst, to see through what we have from our newspapers straight to our conversations for today. Good morning to you, Emeka. Welcome to Enterprise Weekend.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you. It's a super exciting to have you join us. Let's get started with our newspapers. We have the Vanguard, the Punch, the Daily Trust, which is the Weekend Trust version of the Daily Trust. We have the Guardian newspaper. But just before we get into any of the stories coming from the cover pages, Emeka, let's look at what's trending politically. Emeka, did you get the opportunity of watching the viral video of a Warri chief lambasting the person of the First Lady, Remi Tinubu, over her high-handedness with regards to her intrusion into traditional issues, communal living of a people, because she simply comes from a Delta state? What's your take on this, Emeka?
First of all, Tinubu has no right to do that. She's not a member of the Insecurity, ruling council. The Olu in council. She's not a member of the Olu of Warri council. She's not a member. She's not a chief. She's not a palace chief. So, what right does she have to be interfering in communal matters? You see, this is part of what we say, that Nigerian politicians are generally, idle. When they can, when in other countries you see people in office who are always thinking of how to make life better for their people, but here in Nigeria, is how to make life more miserable for Nigerians. And it's what is even more, more galling is that she's not even an elected official. She's just the wife of the president. She's not, they call her first lady. Where is it in the constitution? She's merely the wife of the president. And she's supposed to take a backstage role. But the other, you see videos of her in 30 vehicle convoys, and, just an abuse of power, which is really unfortunate. I mean, just like her stepson, Sheyi, they see themselves as co-presidents with President Bola Tinubu. And it's unfortunate that the president has not been able to rein them in. It's sad. She should step back and stay in the villa to take care of her husband. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And that particular last advice you gave was what the Warri chief actually tendered to her. He told her, go and take care of your family, go and feed your husband, go and take care of your stepchildren, and stop meandering into issues that are not constitutionally reserved for you. But of course, we know how first ladies historically abuse power. We've seen series of events in the past where the first lady to the king masterminded lots of things, and we all knew how it all ended. We just hope that this will not be a repeat of what we've seen in France, in former USSR, and other nations of the world, where the president or the king and the wife of the king partnered in doing ride or die, and we all knew how it all ended. But let's go to the Vanguard newspaper for today. Revealed hideouts of terrorists in Yoruba land, vast stretch of forest taken over, coming from Afenifere. We have below that story, kidnapped Oyo school children, women traditionally storm shrines for divine intervention. That's a very hilarious one. How will the shrine and communication with whatever you believe in. You know, save a situation where God has given us the intelligence to apply and get it solved. We have on the top trip insecurity. But the judge falls at Deboye's ultimatum to service the chiefs. Wow, things are really falling apart here. We have a boy 7 killed in EFCC operation. A mother cries for justice. We have Tinubu orders breakup of 12-year monopoly on airtime credit lending. I do not know how this concerns the economy and if this is within his portfolio to do when we have other important issues to deal with. Behind closed doors, Lagos hotel where kidnappers operate from. Emeka, let's take a look at revealed hideouts of terrorists in Yoruba land. And we have a rider, vast stretches of forest taking over. I know you've talked about it in the past where you had mentioned areas where terrorists have taken over the vast area of land from Niger to other areas. But let's take a look at this. Should we have this as an excuse, really, that every inch of Nigeria has someone representing them? As senators, as House of Rep members, as State House of Rep members, as governor, as president, as councillors, and yet we find it difficult smoking out people who are enemies of the country. Is that an excuse, really, Emeka? Emeka, are you there? Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. The problem to have in Nigeria today, whether bad economy, whether insecurity or anything, can be traced to the the poor functioning of the local governments in Nigeria. Look, prosperity starts, charity begins at home. Prosperity starts at the local level. But governors have made it impossible for local governments to perform. So what do you have? Governors pocket the funds of local governments, and they determine the projects for local governments. They organize the elections and put their own houseboys and lackeys in positions, as chairman. People who don't, many of who don't even live in the local government area, so they don't even know the problems. So what do you find? They go, the local governments only pay salary. They only get together at the end of the month to pay salary. So they don't do roads. Go to the UK, local governments build a council flat. Go abroad, you will see the things that local governments do. In the United States, the Council of Atlanta, owns Jackson Hartfield International Airport in Atlanta. The Council of Fort Worth, owns Alliance Airport in conjunction with some other private sector operators. So if the local governments were functioning in Nigeria, we will not, the unemployment rate will be lesser. And then insecurity will be easily checked. Because, you see, at the local level, nobody knows every other person.
Yeah, definitely.
Where you live, for instance, people, the faces you see constantly. When you see, a new face, you know. And then there are whispers. Hey, have you been seeing that man? Where is he living here? Is he a new landlord? Or is he a new tenant? Like that. So for coming down to your question, for people to just go and be occupying forests, these things had been there since a long time. I remember when I was the news editor of Saturday Punch, as far back as 2002, one of my correspondents there, in one of the states in the North Central, had actually done a story about extremist group that, opened up areas in the forest, opened up enclaves. The extremist groups, they were preaching strange ideologies and opened up, camps. He actually gave us the stories and all of it. It's just unfortunate he's late. Because if he were alive, it would have been nice to go back to that story and ask him, can you update those? Because when I looked at that story, 2002, I said there's fire on the mountain. So now look at these things are metamorphosed. It now became a way of life. If we go into our history, many years ago during the colonial era, anytime strangers came into a community, they will send them to what they call the evil forest to go and build houses. And then gradually, those places now even became like the GRAs, the government reserved areas, of many cities today. And you find out that those are even among the cosmopolitan, the most developed parts of certain cities in Nigeria, which was a misnomer at that time. So now some people now took it upon themselves that, oh, well, we're not going to disturb you in the town. We're going to go into the forest, And then the sad thing is that, you see, the great thing is that the Land Use Act gives governors powers over forests, over every land. The governor of a state, oversees every inch of land in the state. Hello. But what have the governors been doing? They have been more interested in collecting money from developers to, fix urban centers and leaving the rural areas largely untouched. So gradually, when there is no local government system affecting the people positively, and when the governors don't care about the forest, why won't people go there? Of course, people will go there. That is what you have today. People inhabiting the forest, for nefarious purposes. Previously, you had people, in many states, you have people who build farming camps. In the First Republic, in the West and in the East, agriculture was a major preoccupation then. And so you had these camps that people will go to spend some time, stay there like 7-8 months to cultivate, then go away after harvest, go, even some of them would even be staying with their people. Some will go away to go and stay in those places and then return to their families. But those farming settlements have been abandoned. Farming settlements set up by the former premier of the defunct Western region, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Which one is still existing today? They were abandoned. Is it in the East? Is it in the East? Agricultural initiatives of Sir Michael Okpara, they're still in existence. No, they've been abandoned. So what happened? People with nefarious purposes now began to inhabit the forest. Forest that should feed us. Nigeria has 55 million acres of arable land. Forest that should provide enough food for Nigerians and for the whole of West Africa. We have abandoned them because it's cheaper and easier to import food. For the president to give contracts to his cronies, to his friends, and they import food. Food that's not even fit for consumption. They import all this food, rice and all those things. And then when you go to buy rice sometimes, you will see the rice starts kicking. So we must go back to the land. We must take Nigerians back to the land, back to the forests. We must inhabit our forests. We must make the local government system to work. There are no federal farmers, but you have a federal ministry of agriculture. Whereas farming is local, agriculture is local. What is the business of the federal government with farming? It's supposed to be at the state and local government level, particularly at the local government level. But it's the system we run in the country. That is why you see what is going on. So talking about hideouts of terrorists in Yoruba land, I wonder what the newspapers strove to achieve with that kind of headline. It's not only, where do you call Yoruba land? Does it include Dahomey, where the Oyo Empire stretched to, centuries ago? Does it include Edo State? Does it include Kwara and Kogi states? Because the controversy is still there. Some people will tell you that Kwara and Kogi states are not part of the Yoruba land. Some will argue, the old Oyo Empire, blah, 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 and all of that. So the debate is still on, So what I'm talking about is that let's be nationalistic in our thinking. It's not only in Yoruba land that you have, or in Southwest, that you have these issues. Let me tell you, our forests are interlinked. From Sambisa to, forget the name of this forest in the north, linking that way, then, Sambisa all the way from Borno, linking down to Jigawa and the rest of them, and and then linking to forests that connect to Niger. And then don't forget again, the River Niger runs from Senegambia down to Kainji, to Lake Kainji. And then runs into, and then there are tributaries that run into Old Oyo National Park. So Old Oyo National Park and the Kainji National Park, they're intertwined. They are connected. So terrorists can come via the River Niger, get into Kainji through the tributaries of Kainji, and from there connect the Old Oyo National Park. And then there is also the portion called the Upper Ogun River. So they can even also through the Ogun River pretend to be fishermen and still go down, head to Ikorodu. These things are known facts, but people pretend that they don't exist. So we need to really tell ourselves the truth. We must develop every inch of territory of Nigeria. If we have national parks, let them be maintained. Money that is budgeted for them should not be stolen. Let the money be used to maintain these parks. I've been to Yankari Games Reserve, very interesting place. You should develop other parks. Today, you hardly have a zoos. You rarely have any zoo that you can take children to see animals, not to talk of national parks, because people have pocketed the money. So let us, reorganize ourselves, and take development as a crucial part of our existence. That way, we'll be able to deal with any threats to our security. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Emeka. And talking about reclaiming national parks for personal use, of course, yes, some wiki comes to mind. We have seen lots of videos and people's complaints about him taking over lots of parks in Abuja and handing them over to his cronies and his friends, converting parks, green areas, to commercial areas, and which it's not really speaking well. And you made me reminisce a lot about zoos. While we're growing up in the 80s, I remember so vividly, it's easy, very possible to have everyone just visit the zoo. Children get educated on different types of animals and their species and all. Right now, those animals can't even be fed, even when you find them in the zoo, because no budgets for them ultimately. It's quite sad. Emeka, let's take a look at Oyo again. This is coming from the Saturday Punch newspaper. Muslims reject terrorist demand for Sharia law. I had talked about it some times back when I said that people are beginning to tie this to religious fraternity. Remember when the Sultan of Sokoto had issue with allowing Sharia in Oyo State? Then it was waved out because the people repelled against it. Now that these terrorists are demanding that Sharia law should be part of what's happening in Oyo, don't you think the dots are connecting perfectly? And while we should understand what problems we are facing, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, for me, it's all political. It's just some mischievous politicians who are behind that demand. Actually, you notice that in recent times, the politicians have been talking about that Sharia law was implemented in Oyo Onanuga. That when they were discussing Muslim tickets with President Bola Tinubu when he was a candidate, they promised that Sharia will be implemented in Ogun and Oyo states. They've been particular about Oyo State. And even a former minister under President Buhari has been vocal about it. Has been vocal about it. And the government never responded to him. They never said anything. Then, the same thing with some Islamic clerics, saying that Sharia should be observed in Oyo. As a matter of fact, some even took raid against the governor, Governor Sheyi Makinde, on why did he choose a Christian, as if candidates won't go through primaries, aspirants go through primaries to emerge, they just said that why did he get, and there are many parties, there are 22 parties. Why don't you, if in the governor's party, somebody, the Christian emerge, go to another party now and push your own religious candidate. And then let the people decide whether they will vote for the person when the elections come. Not talking as if there won't be any elections or something. So I think those were religious leaders should be investigated. They should be interrogated. The DSS needs to be up and doing, not pursuing activists. It's sad, Mr. Tosi Ajayi, you did your DSS. I don't know what he's doing. The man is a very intelligent man, but he appears to be maybe under external pressure or something. And so you just see what they are doing, pursuing activists, pursuing journalists, pursuing small boys. Eh? Whereas there are potent threats to the nation, to the polity that you should address. You are more interested in looking at somebody who set up a fake audio clip. What does that have to do with you, for crying out loud? This is in a time of insecurity. Deal with the potent security threats. Eh? Not somebody criticizes Tinubu. You are looking for VeryDarkMan. You don't see him. You now send some marksmen to go and abduct one of his followers. What do you? Oh, that is arrant nonsense. Is that what you people do and get paid at the end of the month? Come on, what is all this? What's going on, really? These things, these distractions embolden terrorists. And they say, yes, let them remain distracted. We'll keep doing what we want to do. And that is why insecurity, that's why insecurity is right. But we can do better than this. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Emeka. We should go on and on. If you may, in the next 60 seconds, if you may, let's talk about this issue. EFCC accused my son of fraud, killed him while on bail, grieving mother. Emeka, it is becoming normal in Nigeria that parents now support their children, very young people, very young lads, support them, even when they know that these kids are going into cybercrime and fraud and all that. They look and don't do anything about it. Just when these same kids get prosecuted, the parents of the children now come up to say they are fighting for justice. Emeka, when and how do we draw the divide so as Nigerian parents, brothers and sisters, would understand that they equally have a stake in ensuring that things work for Nigeria and the society we find ourselves through disciplinary actions on people around them?
No, well, quickly, in this case, I've not read the story, but what if the woman is right that EFCC killed her son unjustly? Even if he's a suspect, does he deserve to be killed extrajudicially? His life should not be taken. Because if the offense did not carry capital punishment, why should you kill him? And also when he was on bail, why should you kill him? Why? Why should you adopt illegal means of fighting crime? You are, you find EFCC. There have been cases that EFCC majors more in fighting Yahoo boys, these small fries, these small fraudsters. But the big politicians stealing 100 billion, the 1.3 trillion, a former governor accused of stealing 1.3 trillion because he moved from PDP to APC. The matter has been dropped. I challenge the FCC. What has happened to that matter? They should come and explain to Nigerians what happened. There's a case of Yaya Bello. There's a case of former governors dating back to 2003. What has happened to them? What has happened to their cases? Their case files have gone cold. Yaya Bello has even picked the APC's senatorial ticket for Kogi Central.
I went to have a handshake with President Bola Tinubu.
Yeah, with the president. So what you are saying is that yes, well done. That was that not what emboldened Charlie Mama, the former Minister of Power, who stole 38.3 billion naira of power sector money, and then went on to get the ticket of APC, but he was convicted. And they claimed he ran out of away from the country, whereas he was in the country. Look, we are just making a joke of the anti-corruption fight. We're making a joke. We're making a joke. When these small boys and girls see what the EFCC is doing, that the EFCC is not serious with the fight against crime, against corruption, against graft, what do you think they will do? That is the same thing I say about the DSS, the police. Yes, there are areas where they are really excelled. They've done well. Yes, we commend them for that. But we hope that they will not allow political considerations, extraneous considerations, to distract them. I mean, you don't have to kill a suspect. Even if the person is being accused of committing a crime that has carries capital punishment, let the court do the sentencing. And then let the state decide. Because the person who has the option of appeal up to the Supreme Court. So it's not for you to determine, it's only the court, by the way, that can determine who is a criminal. So we need to, obey the law. So that we will not be like some former IGs who were edged out in APC primaries. And they were complaining, even including a former chief of air staff. He was complaining that he has quit politics, he has quit APC. And I said, oh, when you were in power, what did you do to make sure that people were not denied of the electoral franchise? Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Emeka. As much as that is the truth, this is equally a clarion call. The truth remains that while growing up, our parents would guide us. They would tell us people to meddle with. And their eyes are usually, their eagle eyes, usually on us as kids. Now we have Gen Zs giving birth to Gen Xs and confusion all over the place. When parents themselves are fraudsters, what do you expect their kids to look like? So I'd love to feel that this is a collective action by everyone. If you don't get into it, nothing will draw you close to those who are getting hold of people who are becoming part of it. That is the simple truth. So let's get our own acts right and maybe face the authority that do not do their own well. Emeka will still be here to take us on our main conversation when we return. Arrest made over viral Tinubu voice note controversy. That in a beat. Enterprise weekend it is. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. The highly anticipated book titled Citizen Jones Selected Prologues is finally here.
This exclusive new book takes you on a journey through the finest writing of the ace journalist and broadcaster that will leave you inspired and informed.
Citizen Jones Selected Prologues of Volume 1 now available. Get your copy now.
For details, contact 0706 9637 935 or send an email to enterprisetv@gmail.com. Citizen Jones Selected Prologues, a classical compendium of compelling arguments.
My people, the elections are around the corner. Before you know it, it will be 2027. But before then, for you to partake in the election, you must have your voter's card. And for you to have your voter's card, you must register. INEC has rolled out the draw.
Thank you so very much for being back. This is still Enterprise Weekend, reaching you from Enterprise Television. Let's head straight to our conversation for today. Bayo Onanuga, special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on information and strategy, has confirmed the arrest of Ifechukwu Dennis, the alleged creator of viral AI-generated voice notes falsely attributed to the president. Dennis was arrested in Benin, Edo State, Nigeria, by a police team. According to Onanuga, earlier, Onanuga had accused activist Martins Otse, VeryDarkMan, of creating the fake recording and called for his prosecution. However, investigation later showed that VeryDarkMan did not create the audio. Fact checks revealed that an unknown individual manipulated the voice notes and that they did not originate from the VeryDarkMan's video. 9 days after the accusation, Onanuga identified Dennis as the actual source of the fake recording. He described the arrest as part of efforts to combat misinformation and politically motivated disinformation. The AI-generated voice notes falsely claimed that President Tinubu intentionally allowed insecurity in parts of Nigeria for political gains, asked Peter Obi to step down in his favor before the presidential election, and threatened to worsen insecurity in the southeast part of Nigeria. Police are expected to issue an official statement on this arrest. Let's get talking on this particular matter. Emeka still with me here. Emeka, thank you so very much for hanging on. Emeka, can you hear me? Hello, Emeka, can you hear me? Hello, Emeka, can you hear me? Okay, I think Emeka has joined us now. Emeka, can you hear me? Okay, I think we still have a bit of a network challenge there. I just hope Emeka will join us and let's get this off. All right, so while we wait for Emeka to rejoin us, this is still Enterprise Weekend. Speaking to the issue of the AI fake note as done by one Nigerian, and lots of issues going on there. The special advisor to the president, Bayo Onanuga, has talked about having the person under, and the big question is, why go for the fries when we have our kids still in our bushes? Enterprise Weekend it is. I'll be right back while we get to connect back to Emeka.